You're useless. You can't even handle the chores or take care of the kids, let alone pay the alimony," Kyle spat out as he finally showed up at the hospital 3 weeks after my traffic accident. His harsh words cut through me as I lay there in the hospital bed, hoping he had come out of concern. Instead, he proved to be a disappointment. I sighed deeply. To be honest, I had already been considering a divorce. I didn't expect Kyle to bring it up now, but I guess I should be thankful. It saved us both some trouble. Fine, I agreed quickly, which surprised Kyle. Little did he know, I was already one step ahead. I wanted to tell him that I knew what he was planning and that I was silently laughing at him in my head. My name is Sarah. I'm a 40-year-old housewife living with my husband, Kyle, and our 7-year-old daughter, Lisa. Kyle and I met during a group blind date and got married when I was 30. He was easy to talk to, and eventually, I fell for him. Kyle was charming and the most handsome man at the table when we first met. When he expressed his interest in me, I felt flattered and proud. Kyle was incredibly romantic in our early days. He would surprise me with dessert plates and bouquets at fancy restaurants for my birthdays, take me on trips for our anniversaries, and write heartfelt letters at just the right moments. I felt so lucky to have him and eagerly accepted his marriage proposal, imagining a life full of surprises and excitement even after marriage. But once we were married, things took a turn. "Hey Sarah, my dinner isn't ready yet. I've been working all day, and you can't even have dinner prepared when I get back. You're so lazy." Once married life began, he started demanding, like he was the master of the house and I was supposed to be his caretaker. At first, I was shocked by the change in him. I thought he was just joking. When we were dating, we used to laugh at each other's silly jokes. We imagined a sweet newlywed life where we called each other by cute nicknames and stayed lovey-dovey even after having kids. But it turned out he wasn't joking at all. He treated me like a servant, or something even worse. At first, I would laugh it off, thinking he was joking. But gradually I realized he was serious. He really saw me as his caretaker, and that was frightening. After we got married, I had to quit my job, and we depended on the money Kyle earned. I was scared that if I didn't do as he said, he might cut me off financially, so I felt trapped. Honestly, Kyle's income wasn't great. I was making more when I was working. Kyle only finished high school and jumped from one job to another. His unstable work history continued, quitting jobs every year or two. It seemed Kyle felt insecure about his background and took out his frustrations on me. "I'm sorry I got delayed with some errands," I told him once. "Don't make excuses, just hurry up and make it," Kyle replied, sitting down with a cold beer. This had become a common scene, but each time it happened, it chipped away at the person I used to be. I sighed and started cooking. My marriage made me miserable, but I managed to get by. The following year, our daughter Lisa was born, and my days became a series of struggles. As expected, Kyle didn't help much with Lisa. However, he would spoil her by buying her any candy or toy she wanted. I tried to raise Lisa properly, scolding her when needed, which made her cling to Kyle even more. "Lisa, you like Daddy, don't you?" Kyle asked her once. "Yeah, Daddy is cool. I love Daddy," Lisa replied. "I knew it, I'm super dad," Kyle said, looking at me smugly. It was frustrating, but I couldn't help feeling glad that Lisa loved her father. I just sighed again. Despite his spoiling her, Kyle never attended any of Lisa's kindergarten events like sports festivals or recitals. "You know there's a parent-child race at Lisa's sports festival. Could you participate?" I asked him. "Huh? Why me? You're free that day, you do it," he responded. "I'm busy with work every day, but the sports festival could be a great time for us to bond as parents. It's on a holiday, so you won't have to work," I said. "Shut up. We're already close enough. Maybe you should work on your relationship with Lisa. She thinks you're mean, you know. You might want to fix that," Kyle said, laughing as he left for work. He called himself Super Dad, yet he never showed up to school events. I was worried that Kyle's habit of being easy on himself but hard on others might influence Lisa. He continued to leave all the housework and childcare to me and was lazy at home. Now Lisa is 5 years old and ready to start elementary school, but Kyle was still jumping from job to job. He had just quit his factory job last month and moved to a food and beverage company. "I'll be working weekends at my new job since it's in the food industry," he said. "Looks like we'll hardly see each other then," I replied. "Can't be helped, it's work," he said. Honestly, I was relieved because I knew that with Kyle gone, my days would be a bit easier. I was tired of Kyle ordering me around on weekends. Now, I wouldn't have to be nagged by him to clean the floor or serve meals quickly. However, with Kyle out on weekends, Lisa would be sad. It's better for kids to spend holidays with the whole family. I have work, so please let Lisa know, Kyle said. I couldn't really argue with Kyle since he was the one bringing in the money. Reluctantly, I went to tell Lisa. I'm sorry, but Daddy won't be able to go out with you on his day off, I said, expecting her to be upset. I told her with a frown, but contrary to my expectations, Lisa seemed unconcerned. It's okay. If you're okay with it, then it's fine. You know he's not going to be here on all weekends, right? Daddy has been smelling strange lately, she said. A strange smell? I asked, puzzled. Lisa nodded and went back to her room. What on earth was she talking about? I've been so busy with housework and taking care of our child that I hadn't noticed much about Kyle lately. Our marriage was not like it used to be, and I tried to avoid being around Kyle to keep things calm. The strange smell Lisa mentioned might be from the factory, I thought. Factories often use special solvents, so it made sense that Kyle could come home with a weird smell. If that was the case, the smell would probably go away soon. Kids are really honest, which is what makes them so endearing. Despite what he said, Kyle started leaving the house early in the morning even on his days off, which was odd. He also left every weekday. If he was working weekends, he should have a day off during the week. He left without saying anything to me, so I couldn't tell if he was going to work or not. I became curious about what he was doing, leaving so early even on his days off. One day, I decided to follow him. I asked Kyle, "You seem to be going out every day off. What are you doing?" Kyle looked confused for a moment, then answered in an annoyed tone while scratching his head, "I'm working. I go to work voluntarily." "Really? But you should take care of yourself or your body won't hold up," I replied. "Shut up. Don't complain about my job," Kyle snapped back. I didn't understand why he got so angry when he often complained about my housework and child rearing. I didn't believe what Kyle said. There's no way he, who usually avoids trouble, would go to work voluntarily on his days off. I knew this from watching him closely over the years. If he was that passionate about work, he would have stayed at his previous job longer. I also started paying attention to the strange smell that Lisa mentioned. Indeed, Kyle came home with a sweet, strong fragrance. This strange smell was not from the factory. Why hadn't I noticed this before? I blamed myself for being so naive and vowed not to make the same mistake again. From then on, I decided to watch Kyle more carefully, especially on weekdays when he said he was going to work. He seemed to wake up an hour earlier than usual and took extra care grooming himself. He appeared to be in a good mood on those days, which vary from week to week, sometimes on a Monday, sometimes on a Thursday. But it was clear that Kyle was happy on those days. One day, when he left the house, I went into his room to look for any clues. I felt like a detective searching the house. Since I always cleaned Kyle's room, I knew it well and didn't feel bad about snooping around. If Kyle had hidden anything, it would be in a place not easily seen. I searched carefully under the desk and bed. Finally, hidden in a candy tin in the closet, I found a bunch of letters. What were these? All the letters were from the same person named Patricia. They had been sent through the mail. The oldest letter was from 4 months ago, and the newest was from yesterday. As I read the letters, I saw phrases like, "I regretted when we broke up, but now I really love you, and I want to go back to the time when I was with you." It sounded like something a lovesick teenager would say. At first, I thought maybe Kyle's ex-girlfriend was sending these letters on her own, but then I read a line that worried me. "I'm glad you like me again. I'm looking forward to our next date." This was from last week. It looked like Kyle was seeing this Patricia. Today, he was definitely up to something. I took photos of the letters with my smartphone as evidence. I thought about taking the letters, but I didn't want to make Kyle suspicious. Even with these letters, I felt I didn't have enough proof. After thinking it over, I decided to hire a private investigator to check on Kyle. 3 weeks later, the investigator gave me the results. He quickly brought photos of Kyle and Patricia close together in the park at night, and even a recording of them saying, "I love you" to each other. I accepted the facts calmly. With solid proof in hand, I went to the municipal office and came back with a divorce form. Now that I knew Kyle was cheating, I had no reason to stay with him. I planned to confront him with the divorce papers the next time something happened. I returned home and let out a deep sigh. I was acting resolute, but honestly, I was heartbroken. I was upset with myself for having married someone as careless as Kyle. I was thinking about resting a bit before making dinner when my phone rang. Hello? Yes, Sarah, do you have time to talk? Yes, what's going on? I was surprised to get a call from my father. He usually doesn't call me. Actually, your mother and I were talking yesterday, and we're thinking about transferring our assets to you soon. Huh? What happened? My father ran a company that sold imported goods to Japanese corporations. I was the daughter of a big company president, but I never told Kyle about this. I thought it would make me sound boastful, especially since Kyle jumped from one job to another. We're getting old and thinking about retiring. We thought about keeping the company going but didn't want to push it onto you, our only daughter, so we've decided to step back. I see. I felt guilty about not taking over the company, but my parents respected my decision and had planned for the future. I was deeply touched by their thoughtfulness. We're thinking of handing over our assets to you. Our total wealth is $17 million, but we're fine with just $3 million. We've decided to give you the remaining $15 million. $15 million? I was shocked. That was more money than I could ever imagine earning in my lifetime. Yes, there will probably be inheritance tax, but you'll still have plenty left. You won't have to worry about living expenses for the rest of your life, Dad said. Thank you. I expressed my deepest gratitude to my father and mother and hung up. Soon, $17 million would be coming my way. With that money, I wouldn't have any worries, even if I divorced Kyle. No offense to him, but he probably couldn't earn that much. I felt relieved and was in a daze for a while. Glancing at the clock, it was 6:00 p.m. I realized I needed to make dinner and checked the fridge, but there were no groceries left. I got ready to go shopping at the supermarket. My heart was light, but I also felt a sense of urgency that Kyle might come home soon. As I was hurrying across the last crosswalk to the supermarket, the light turned green. Watch out, someone yelled, but it was too late. My body was already in the air, and then I hit the ground hard. The sharp pain shot through my head, and without understanding what had happened, I lost consciousness. When I woke up, I was lying on a hospital bed. The first thing I saw when I opened my eyes were my parents and Lisa. Sarah, thank goodness, Mom said. Lisa was crying next to me. I gently stroked her head. You were hit by a car and broke both legs. They say it will take 5 months to fully recover. I felt dizzy thinking about being out of action for so long. From that day on, I was stuck in a wheelchair. Although the nurses took care of me, I felt frustrated and annoyed because I couldn't use my legs. During my stay in the hospital, my parents and friends visited me. My parents were now taking care of Lisa, since Kyle was always at work. I thought that was better for her. I was glad everyone visited, but Kyle never came. I started to doubt his care, thinking, aren't we husband and wife? However, 1 week after I was hospitalized, Kyle finally showed up. Hey, feeling good? Kyle asked sarcastically. Yeah, man, it's a mess at home without me, I replied lightly. Kyle always complained about my housework. As soon as he spoke, showing no empathy, I sighed. I had thought he would be at least a little worried about me. What can I do? I was in a car accident. I snapped back when Kyle looked at me with disdain and said, you're useless if you can't do housework or take care of the child. That's the worst, and you should pay alimony. He said such horrible things to his hospitalized wife. Initially, I had hoped Kyle came to visit out of concern, but he was still disappointing. I sighed deeply. Honestly, I have been thinking about getting a divorce myself. I hadn't expected Kyle to bring up divorce today, but it saved me the trouble of arguing. Sure, I said, and Kyle looked surprised when I agreed. Unfortunately, I know what you're up to, I wanted to say, laughing inside. Instead, I pulled out a filled-in divorce form from a bag my mother had brought and held it in front of Kyle's face. You already had this. Kyle was briefly confused, his eyes wide, but then he took the divorce notice from me and filled in his name and address right there. I felt relieved, knowing I wouldn't have to see Kyle's face ever again. I wanted to tell him the feeling was mutual, but I just watched him leave silently. Probably Kyle will remarry Patricia after the divorce. I don't know what kind of woman Patricia is, but it's sad to think she's going to marry someone as controlling and unpleasant as Kyle. I thought to myself. I felt a bit guilty about Lisa, but deciding to leave was something I had thought about for a long time. I promised myself I would take good care of Lisa. A month after Kyle left, my life was peaceful. The time without my husband nagging me felt like heaven. I was released from the hospital and started physical therapy. I decided to stay at my parents' house until my leg healed. My parents were angry at Kyle when they learned about the divorce, but they stopped pressing the issue when I told them I wanted to forget about him. Lisa doesn't seem lonely even without her father around and is going to elementary school happily, I observed. In the end, Lisa also noticed Kyle's domineering behavior and probably didn't see him as a father anymore. I was convinced that divorcing Kyle was the right decision, but one afternoon I got a call on my mobile phone. I ignored it when I saw Kyle's name, but the phone kept ringing nonstop. Eventually, I answered the call. "Hey Sarah, when are you coming back?" Kyle's words made no sense to me, and he sounded like he was about to start yelling. "What do you mean coming back? You're married to Patricia, didn't you?" I replied. When I mentioned Patricia's name, Kyle sounded surprised and exclaimed, "How do you know that? Did you think I didn't know you cheated? That's why I asked for alimony." "Yes, that's right, but alimony and child support, I can't pay that. Why do I have to pay alimony anyway? You, who never did the housework, should be the one to pay," Kyle argued. I was shocked to hear Kyle's argument. I had requested alimony and child support through a lawyer, but he hadn't paid yet. I knew Kyle didn't have a lot of money, but he should find a way to pay. Yet here he was saying something ridiculous like I should be the one to pay alimony. "I gathered evidence of your affair through a detective agency. The lawyer has seen it." It seems Kyle had already seen the evidence from the detective agency. That would make things easier, but him calling me was ridiculous. "I wanted a divorce even before I found out about the affair because you never helped with housework or childcare, and you complained all the time. I'm not your housekeeper, you know. But it's good you're married now. You have someone else to look after you. But here's the thing. Patricia can't do housework. Before we got married, she said, leave everything to me. But once we got married, her cooking is terrible, and she doesn't clean. I would have been better off with you. Marry me again. After all, you don't have any money, right? Lisa liked me too, didn't she?" Kyle said, which annoyed me. "What are you talking about? You divorced me and remarried. You're her partner, not my responsibility. And sorry to say, Lisa doesn't like you. And I have money. Don't lie to me. There's no way you have money. You were a housewife. You can't live without me." I had no intentions of telling Kyle about the fortune I inherited from my parents, but faced with his aggressive attitude, I had no choice but to reveal it. My parents are CEOs. Recently, I inherited their assets. It's around $52 million in total, so I can live without working for the rest of my life, I calmly stated over the phone, picturing Kyle's stunned reaction on the other end. "You're lying. There's no way you have such a huge amount of money," Kyle retorted skeptically. "It's true. If you want, I can have my parents tell you," I replied, sensing Kyle's disbelief beginning to waver. With that, Kyle finally seemed to believe my words and fell silent. Then he exploded, "If it's true, why didn't you tell me?" "Well, I wanted to tell you, but I knew about your affair and I had already formed a low opinion of you. At that point, there was no issue of property distribution, and I hadn't yet inherited the assets," I explained calmly, not willing to engage in a heated argument. Kyle bit his lip in frustration. He probably never imagined I had such assets. He must have been regretting that he should have never divorced me. But I was resolute. I didn't want to endure his terrible behavior anymore. "Can I hang up now? Please pay the alimony properly, reflect on your actions, and never call me again. Goodbye," I said firmly before hanging up. Immediately, I blocked Kyle's number so he couldn't call anymore. "Mom, who were you talking to?" Lisa walked into the room, curious. "Just a friend," I replied, smiling at Lisa. "But Lisa, do you want to go to the amusement park this weekend?" "Yes," Lisa beamed with happiness. Seeing her smile reminded me that her happiness was all that mattered to me. A few days later, I heard that Kyle had broken up with his new wife, Patricia. They argued because she wouldn't do housework, and Patricia ended up leaving him. Kyle, having been divorced twice in a short time, would probably find it hard to get married again. I hoped he would stay single for a while to prevent more people from getting hurt. After the divorce, Kyle lost his motivation and quit his job at the restaurant. He would probably find another job, but it might take him some time to get his life back on track. I felt a twinge of sympathy for him, but his problems were of his own making. I had blocked his calls so he couldn't ask me for money, and I avoided places where we used to go together. In my life, Kyle had virtually disappeared. Eventually, Kyle paid the alimony but ended up in debt. I didn't know how he would manage, but I hoped he learned from his mistakes. I continued to live comfortably at my parents' house. They told us we could stay as long as we liked. After my legs fully healed, I started part-time work at a local flower shop. Even though I didn't need to work, I found it better to be active and leave the house. I worked hard on weekdays and spent weekends having fun with Lisa and my parents. I found more joy in life than before and wanted to keep living happily with the people I loved. I cherished these happy moments, especially when I saw Lisa's smile. "Hey, I need to talk to you about something," I said, gathering my courage. "Can we cut back on having your mom over every weekend?" My husband let out a deep sigh. "Lisa, it feels like you're always saying no to everything." "What do you mean by that?" I asked, a bit taken aback. "You don't want me to build a house. You don't want my mom coming over. You're always against something." "That's not what I meant," I tried to explain. "Then what did you mean? How much longer do we have to keep waiting?" "My name is Lisa, and I've been married to Frank for 5 years. We share a common dream, owning our own home. Now that we've saved enough for a down payment, we're finally ready to leave behind renting and move into the home I've always envisioned. Once we're settled, we plan to start a family and raise our children in a place that truly belongs to us." But just as our hopes were growing, a dark cloud appeared on the horizon. My mother-in-law, who had caught wind of our plans, began making some rather unsettling moves. "So, I hear you're finally buying a house," she said. "Yes, that's right," I replied. "Have you already decided on what kind of home you want?" "Yes, I have an idea of what we want," I said. "That's wonderful. If there's anything I can do to help, just let me know." "Thank you, I appreciate that." "Oh, by the way, have you checked out the showroom near your house?" "No, we haven't managed to get an appointment there yet," I replied. "Well, I'll take care of that for you. We can go together." "Actually, I prefer to go with just my husband," I said, trying to be polite. Despite my efforts, my mother-in-law continued to involve herself in our property search. She even started showing up unannounced. "I brought you a brochure for some land that's for sale," she said one day, catching me off guard. "Thank you very much." My mother-in-law held a dozen leaflets in her hand, eager to share them. "How about this one? It's close to the station and spacious enough for 2 families." Wait, did she just say 2 families? I was too stunned to respond, and she continued talking as if nothing was amiss. "If the train station isn't nearby, it's inconvenient for everything, and you'll want to be close to a hospital for when you get older. This property is also near a supermarket. It must be hard for you to choose with so many options, right?" What started as an offer to help quickly turned into her taking control of the house search. She was making decisions as if she planned to live there too. This is not good at all. I told my husband everything that had happened that night. "Oh, I think she might have mentioned something about living together," he said casually. "What? You want us all to live together?" I asked, surprised. "Well, if you're okay with it, I'm not going to push you into anything, don't worry." I felt blindsided by his response. If I'm okay with it? No, I'm not. I couldn't believe he was being so indecisive. When it's time to tell my mother-in-law that we're not living together, I'm going to be the one dealing with the fallout. Why can't he see that? "Maybe we should stop building the house," I suggested, feeling frustrated. "What? Why?" he asked, clearly confused. "Because of the way you phrased it. If I refuse to live with her, she'll know I was the one who said no. We're going to be together for a long time, and I don't want things to become awkward. I'd rather not have a house if it means dealing with that. We can raise our kids in a rental and use the down payment we save for their education instead." My husband's panic was evident. "Wait a minute, I understand now. I'll tell her no, and we'll move forward with building the house." "No, it's fine. You can't even stand up to your mother." I'd never seen him stand up to his mother before. "Trust me, I'll handle it," he said, trying to reassure me. "Why are you so desperate?" he asked, sounding puzzled. "I want to live in our own house and raise our children there," I replied. "You didn't seem so enthusiastic about it before." "That's not true. I was excited. It's hurtful to say otherwise. I feel just as strongly about our children." "All right, I understand." My husband promised he would tell his mother no, but given his usual hesitation, I doubted he'd follow through. However, the day after our conversation, my mother-in-law stopped pressuring us and even called to apologize. "Lisa, I got scolded by Frank. He told me he wants to live with you alone. I'm sorry for pushing my opinions on you," my mother-in-law said. I was surprised to hear that Frank had actually stood up to her. He could speak his mind when it mattered. Still, I couldn't shake a lingering suspicion. When I told my husband about the apology, he had a satisfied grin on his face. See? When I say I'll speak up, I mean it. What's with that look in your eyes? I asked, puzzled. I was wondering if you really told her, I said, still unsure. Are you doubting me? Isn't that awful? He replied, hurt. I haven't seen you stand up to your mother in 5 years, and you didn't do it in front of me. That's unfair. I tried so hard. You're right, I'm sorry. But you're sweating like crazy. What's going on? Oh, it's just hot. Isn't it a bit warm today? It's the middle of winter. By the way, let's finalize the house contract. You really want to build this house, don't you? Of course I do. That's what we've been saving for. At this point, I had lost interest in building the new house, the dream home I had worked so hard to save for. My enthusiasm had dwindled due to my mother-in-law's behavior and my husband's attitude, making me feel as if all my efforts had been in vain. I found myself stepping back from the idea. Meanwhile, my husband continued to insist on building the house. 6 months had passed since our dispute, and although he kept talking about it, I remained unconvinced. My mother-in-law, who had been quiet, was now growing impatient. She started visiting our house frequently. While she never mentioned the house, her attitude became increasingly arrogant. Both my husband and I work full-time, and we both have weekends off. Lately, my mother-in-law has been coming over to our house every weekend. I could manage if it were just once a month, but her frequent visits are making me uncomfortable. My husband seems to be quite pleased with the arrangement, but it's becoming a problem for me. I'd like to have some peace on Saturdays and Sundays, but she arrives at 7 in the morning and blasts the TV at an incredibly loud volume. If I try to stay in bed, she paces back and forth in front of my room. My husband is busy taking care of her, which should be enough. When I finally gave in and got up at 7:30, she remarked, "How can you sleep in with a guest over? She stays until late on Sunday night, and it's starting to wear me down." My husband remains silent about his mother's behavior, and whenever I think of him, the word divorce crosses my mind. However, I want to avoid that if at all possible. I needed to find a way to improve the situation. "Hey, I need you to stop having your mother over every weekend," I said, expressing my feelings directly. He let out a deep sigh. "Lisa, you always seem to be against everything." "What do you mean by that?" "You don't want to build a house, you don't want my mother visiting. You're against everything." "That's not how I meant it." "Then what did you mean? How long do we have to wait for?" "You just said we. What did you mean by that?" "Who else is waiting?" I asked, confused. "What do you mean?" "You said we just now," I clarified. My husband's face turned red and he began to sweat. "I didn't say that. Maybe I misheard. But we can't build a house if your mother keeps coming over every weekend like this." "Why not?" "Because I can't relax. If my parents came over every weekend, would you be able to rest?" "Your parents won't come. They have such a nice house." "I'm fed up with this nonsense," I said, frustrated. "That's not the issue here," he retorted. "I don't even care about the house anymore. I'm going to invite my parents to stay with us next week." My husband's voice rose. "Absolutely not." "Why not?" "Because it's too exhausting. Don't invite your parents. My mother is the only one who can visit. This is my house too. I'm the head of the house. If you can't follow my rules, then leave." "Are you serious?" "You're completely useless to me. I'm done with you. You can't make my mother happy, and if we can't build a house, she can't live with us." "You promised she wouldn't live with us." "What are you talking about? Once the house was built, we could do whatever we wanted, including having my mother live with us." "What do you mean?" "I've told you this before, and you still don't understand. I planned to have my mother move in once the house was built." I knew it. My mother-in-law didn't back down easily. My husband was plotting with her all along. "I see now. All right, I'll leave." "I hope you won't regret this," he said. "Of course not. Just don't come near me again," I replied firmly. I packed only the essentials and went to my parents' house. They were taken aback by my sudden arrival, but once I explained what had happened, they welcomed me with open arms. "This is what family is for, right?" "I suppose our relationship was damaged from the start when I couldn't trust my husband," I said. "Dad, I'm so sorry," I added, feeling the weight of my actions. "I understand things didn't work out between you two, but work and personal life are separate issues." "Yes, I agree. So my ex-husband and I are now divorced." There were no money claims or financial disputes, just a straightforward division of property. But 3 months have passed, and now my ex-husband is on his knees in front of me. "I'm sorry, father-in-law," he says. "I'm not your father anymore. Be careful what you call me." Boss, is this a result of me divorcing your daughter?" "What are you talking about? Why did my ex-husband come all the way to my parents' house and get down on his knees?" "It's because he received an unwanted transfer. Both of us worked for my father's company, and he seems to believe the transfer was a consequence of our divorce. However, my father made it clear during the divorce that personal matters had no bearing on work decisions. All employees at his company are assigned to regional posts for a few years to enhance their skills, and transfers are never used as a form of punishment." But that explanation doesn't seem to satisfy my ex-husband. "Lisa, you need to stop the boss. I thought you told me never to show my face again." "I'm sorry, please," he begged. "No, this isn't an obligation. I was once in line to be the next president, remember? I can't believe you interrupted me with such nonsense." "You're mistaken. I'm still the next president, regardless of our divorce." "What?" "Of course, I'm his daughter." My ex-husband nodded and left our house. The next day, he submitted his resignation, despite people around him trying to explain that the transfer wasn't a demotion. He refused to listen. A few days later, he was found in an unexpected place. I was casually watching a documentary on TV when I saw my ex-husband featured on the program. He appeared in line at a volunteer organization for a meal donation, looking disheveled and poorly dressed. Life can be unpredictable. It made me reconsider the word regret that I once said to him. I'm sure he regrets his actions now. The fact that he was holding 2 meal containers suggested that one was meant for his mother. Although I don't know all the details, it's clear that his life has drastically changed from what it once was. As for me, I'm thriving on my own. My weekdays are filled with work, but I relish my days off. It's a true blessing to sleep soundly without morning disruptions. I am living in a state of happiness and contentment. It was the unexplained coldness of her ex-husband that had caused her so much pain, a pain she struggled to convey to others. She wished she could use that experience as a shield to say no to her in-laws. Lisa, you did an excellent job. I hope you're able to enjoy your time on your own now.
My mother-in-law insisted I cook even though I was completely exhausted. The aroma of the food was overwhelming for my pregnant body, and I had to rush to the bathroom. I threw up into the toilet, but since I hadn't eaten anything all day because of her relentless demands, it was mostly just liquid. From that moment, I felt like I was in serious trouble. "Lisa, how long are you planning to stay in there? We need that food ready." "I'm sorry," I managed to reply, my voice weak. Young people these days just lack patience. Pregnancy isn't something you can handle with patience alone. How dare you speak back to me? Just because you're pregnant doesn't give you the right to be so insolent. If you keep this up, I'll knock some sense into you. My name is Lisa, and I'm a 27-year-old office worker. My husband Ken and I have been happily married for 2 years, balancing our careers while supporting each other. Then something wonderful happened. I discovered I was pregnant. Both of us were overjoyed and eagerly anticipating the arrival of our new family member. When I found out I was pregnant, I took maternity leave, and before I knew it, I was in the final month of pregnancy, with the twins due any day. Since we were expecting twins, we had to transfer our care from a general hospital to a private one equipped for emergency surgeries. Managing daily life on my own was becoming increasingly challenging, so my husband suggested that I move in with my mother temporarily. My father passed away when I was young, and now my mother lives alone. Since my husband and my mother get along well, and I'm accustomed to living with her, it seemed like the best option for minimizing stress. So for the past few months, I've been staying with my mother. The hospital where I'll be giving birth is also closer to her house, which has made the transition very comfortable. Just when I was on the verge of giving birth, I was confronted with an unexpected and troubling situation. My mother-in-law. Initially, I had a positive impression of her. She was warm and friendly when we first met, and she was open and engaging at family gatherings. However, as time went on, I began to see a different side of her. Why was my mother-in-law involved now? I had no choice but to ask for her help. My husband, a special design engineer, was dealing with an urgent issue with a local client only he could resolve, so he needed to visit the client personally. Meanwhile, my mother was hospitalized with appendicitis and would be out of commission for a few days. Concerned about me being alone, my husband suggested that my mother-in-law stay with me to provide support. At the time, I still had a positive view of my mother-in-law, so I was relieved when she agreed to come and help. I thought her presence would bring some much-needed peace of mind. However, the moment she arrived at my house, her demeanor took a turn for the worse. "Oh my God, your house is such a mess. Do you and your mother even clean?" Her comments were harsh and unprovoked, and she even went as far as to insult my mother. I was taken aback, as I had always thought of my mother-in-law as a kind person. "Mother, thank you for coming to take care of me for the next few days." "Oh, you must have misunderstood something," she replied dismissively. "What?" "I'm only here to call an ambulance if you need it," she said bluntly. "You'll need to handle the housework yourself." "Oh, don't think you can take advantage of me just because you're pregnant. I'll show you how to clean your house. Now get ready." Reluctantly, I had to comply with my mother-in-law's demands. She had me walking around the house, tidying up every nook and cranny. Then, despite my exhaustion, she insisted I cook. The smell of the food became overwhelming, and I had to rush to the bathroom. I threw up in the toilet, but since I hadn't eaten anything because of the constant demands from my mother-in-law, it was mostly just liquid. From the very first day, I felt like I was in danger. "Hey, Lisa, how long are you going to stay in the bathroom? Come out and cook." "I'm sorry. Young people these days just don't have any patience. Pregnancy isn't something you handle with patience alone. How dare you talk back to me? Just because you're pregnant doesn't give you the right to be so insolent. If you keep this up, I'll knock some sense into you. Tomorrow, we'll do a more thorough cleaning. We'll tackle the yard and get rid of the weeds." "But I don't think I can manage pulling weeds. It's my last month of pregnancy." "Don't be so lazy. You need to strengthen your legs. You've been pampered and living a lazy life. You won't be able to raise a child like that." But the doctor advised me to rest as much as possible. Oh, what I'm talking about. I've already given birth to my son and daughter. Listen to me, not that nonsense from the doctor. You can rest today, but starting tomorrow, I'll be much stricter, so be ready. My mother-in-law grinned as she spoke. It was clear she wasn't interested in teaching me. She was simply enjoying the power of giving orders and mistreating me. Fearing that continuing to follow her demands might put my pregnancy at risk, I tried to resist as much as I could. "That's enough. It's obvious you should follow the doctor's advice. What you're doing is just bullying your daughter-in-law. How dare you speak to me like that? I should have known I couldn't trust you." "Trust me? What are you talking about? I'm saying I never trusted someone raised by a single mother. They don't get proper guidance. That's why I didn't want my son to marry you." "I see, so that's what you really thought." "Yes, that's exactly it. But you can at least give me grandchildren. Once you've given me what I want, I'm done with you." "What do you mean, done?" "Well, ideally, there would be a separation and divorce. My son and the grandchildren can return to our home." "I understand your point. I'll support you through the birth, at the very least." "No, I've had enough." "What are you talking about? Without my help, the babies could be at risk." "Don't be selfish, just do as I say." Just then, my husband walked in. "Hey, Mom, what's going on here?" "What? Why are you home? Didn't you go on a business trip?" "Fortunately, everything went smoothly, and I was able to return today. I got a message from Lisa asking for help, so I called her and stayed on the line." "So, you heard everything we discussed?" "Yes, I heard everything." "Mom, what kind of danger are you putting my pregnant wife in?" "Well, when I was pregnant, though medicine is much more advanced now, the doctor's advice is still crucial. Lisa is carrying twins, so she needs even more care than with a single pregnancy. If anything happens to those babies, it's on you." "Oh no." Also, you mocked Lisa's mother for being a single parent. I didn't realize you were like this. You only see things on the surface. The truth is, single parent. Single parent. I'm sure those children didn't receive a proper upbringing. So does that mean I and everyone who works for her mother are bad people too? What? When we first met each other's families, I mentioned that my mother is a business owner. I thought that was just a small bar or something. I figured she was just trying to impress. Oh, I see. I didn't realize you had such a narrow view. I thought you were more open-minded. Lisa's mom is actually the president of the company I used to work for. She was recently featured in a business magazine. It was originally her husband's company, but after he passed away, she took over. She's been successfully running it for over 20 years. Well, I didn't know that. If I had, I might have acted differently. I dislike people who change their behavior based on someone's status. You've been belittling Lisa and my mother-in-law all along, haven't you? I don't want anything to do with you anymore. On top of that, you've endangered my babies. I'm cutting ties with you, Mom. You can't do that. Don't ever come around us again. I'm sorry, please. Sorry? No, I can't forgive you. What you said to Lisa was unacceptable. I'll never be able to forgive you. I'm going to tell Dad and my sister about this. Music. Now, if you cause any more trouble, get out of here. My mother-in-law's face turned pale as my husband insisted she leave. I'm so relieved he came back when he did. If he had left me alone with her, I can't imagine what might have happened. Afterward, my mother-in-law returned to my in-law's house, but my husband had informed my father-in-law about the situation, so my mother-in-law was not allowed inside. She then turned to my sister-in-law for help, but my husband had also filled her in, so she refused to assist her mother as well. Although my sister-in-law has her own issues with her mother-in-law, she couldn't tolerate seeing her mother bully me. With no support from the family, my mother-in-law was left feeling abandoned. Desperate, she went to my father-in-law, begging and pleading. He agreed to let her return home on the condition that she promised never to bully me again. My husband reinforced this by insisting she stay out of our lives completely, and warned her that breaking even the smallest promise would result in immediate divorce. Additionally, as a consequence for her actions, he required her to help with his brother's farm for 3 months. My mother-in-law had to work under the sweltering summer heat, pushing her physical limits. It was well-deserved. Meanwhile, I gave birth to healthy twins, and my mother was discharged from the hospital, overjoyed to hold her grandchildren. My husband suggested that I stay with my parents for a while to adjust to my new role as a mother. Both my husband and my mother are supportive, helping me with the babies and household chores. With such strong family unity and mutual care, we've been able to live together in peace and harmony. Either way, everyone in my husband's family has visited us except for my mother-in-law. They're all thrilled to meet our children. I'm looking forward to continuing our happy life together with the family. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one. I confronted my husband with the evidence from the detective agency. His face was a mask of resolve as he said, "Roy and I have been having an affair. I'm in love with her, and I've decided to be with her. You need to leave." "Is this really what you want?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. "It doesn't matter what happens next," he replied, his tone unyielding. I took a deep breath and thought about my own life. My name is Amy. I'm 37 years old and work in an office. I live with my husband Ted and our 5-year-old daughter Katie. We're close and support each other through our shortcomings. For now, we're happy as a family. Ted is a fantastic cook and always prepares dinner for us. Since I often work late and put in a lot of overtime, I truly appreciate that Ted handles the housework. One day, my husband sustained an unexpected ligament injury. He decided to play basketball with friends for the first time in ages, pushing himself to make a shot despite not having exercised regularly since starting his job. Although he's 5 years younger than me at 32, his lack of fitness showed. It made no sense for him to act so recklessly, especially with a job and a child to consider. When we were dating, his impulsiveness seemed exciting and new, but now it feels like a major flaw. The injury has landed him in the hospital, requiring him to take time off work. That means I'll have to handle the housework and look after our child alone. Adding to the frustration, the injury occurred at a multi-sport facility, not even a proper basketball court. The company could be outraged if they found out, and he might even face termination. I felt a surge of anger and disillusionment. His irresponsible behavior as an adult has become a serious burden. The doctor said he'll need to stay in the hospital for about 2 weeks. I brought him a change of clothes, a phone charger, and other essentials. "Thanks for bringing these, Amy," he said, his voice unusually upbeat. I couldn't hide my frustration. "Why are you so cheerful? Normally you'd be more upset." "Well, what can I do? It was an accident. Plus, I'll use my paid vacation days, so it'll be fine." "Fine. If it weren't for your injury, you could have saved those vacation days for something important like our daughter's kindergarten event or a family trip. That's what they're meant for. Now your coworkers and bosses will have to pick up the slack because you can't come to work. As for our daughter, I'm grateful my mom could step in and help with her. Without her, I wouldn't be able to manage my overtime, and it would create more problems at work. You need to realize the impact of your actions on everyone around you." I must have been really angry because my complaints just spilled out. My husband looked regretful and said, "I'm sorry." "Maybe I overreacted a bit," I admitted, trying to calm down. I told him get better soon, and left the hospital room. Whether my husband was there or not, my work was still incredibly busy. I planned to ask my mother to continue taking care of our daughter for a bit longer. However, when my boss and co-workers learned about my husband's hospitalization, they insisted I didn't need to work overtime. Thanks to their support, I was able to leave work on time, come home early, cook dinner, and enjoy a meal with my daughter. I didn't have to lean too much on my mother, and I was truly grateful for the kindness of my colleagues. A week later, after finishing work, I took my mother and daughter to visit my husband. As we entered his hospital room, I heard him laughing heartily along with a woman's voice. "Oh my God, Ted. Who's that?" I wondered if the woman was one of his colleagues or perhaps a junior from work. When we entered the hospital room, we found a young, slim, and quite attractive nurse there. "Oh, it's your wife and your lovely daughter," she said, giving us a polite bow before leaving the room. "While I'm juggling everything, you're here chatting with a beautiful nurse so casually," I said, my frustration evident. My husband, noticing my icy demeanor, appeared visibly uneasy. "Thanks for coming," he said, attempting to ease the tension. Fortunately, my daughter's presence softened the moment. "Hi, Dad," she said, hugging him tightly and beaming with joy at seeing him for the first time in a week. "Katie, I missed you so much. Is your leg feeling better?" "Now that you're here, Katie, everything will be okay, so you'll be coming home soon." "Yes, I will." "Yay!" Seeing my daughter so happy lifted my spirits as well. I decided to let the scolding wait for another time. After our visit, my mother mentioned, "That young nurse was calling his name in such a friendly way." "Yeah, she was," I agreed. Her tone did sound quite intimate. Although I found it hard to believe my husband would actually pursue anything with a young, attractive nurse, the thought lingered. Maybe she was looking for someone to be interested in her. They say nurses don't meet many men, so she could be quite forward. Finally, after 2 weeks in the hospital, my husband was discharged. On the day of his release, I visited his room and found him chatting cheerfully with that attractive nurse once again. On the drive home, he seemed unusually bored. I would have expected him to be more enthusiastic about leaving the hospital. This struck me as odd, so I decided to hire a detective agency to investigate. The results came swiftly. After his discharge, he was supposed to go to the hospital for rehabilitation. However, his leg was already healed, and he was lying about needing rehab. Instead, he was visiting the nurse's house. I was stunned. How could my husband be having an affair with her? Or beautiful nurses really drawn to such situations? I confronted my husband with the evidence from the detective agency. He didn't hesitate, saying, "Yes, I'm having an affair. I'm in love with her. I'm going to be with her, and you need to leave. I don't care what happens. I'm in love with her. Fine, do whatever you want. This is absurd," I replied. I packed my things, took my daughter, and went to stay with my parents. When I told my mother what had happened, she was furious. "Knew something wasn't right," she said. "Your instincts were spot on, Mom," I acknowledged. After that, I finalized the divorce with the help of a lawyer, securing alimony and my share of the property. We had some disagreements over the division of assets, but I managed to get what I was entitled to and received the funds I deserved. With that, I felt completely free from my past and ready to start anew with my daughter. But as I began my new life, I started receiving numerous calls from an unknown number. Initially, I ignored them, but their persistence eventually got the better of me. "Hello." Finally, you answer. "Who is this?" I demanded. "Well, who are you?" "I'm Anna, Ted's new wife." "Oh, the woman he cheated with. So what do you want?" "You demanded an excessive amount in alimony and property division from my husband. I had a lawyer determine a fair amount." "Then why does he need to sell the house to pay it?" "That's because his salary isn't high enough." "How can his salary be low if he works for a foreign invested company?" "What are you talking about?" "I'm the one working for a foreign invested company, not him." "What do you mean?" "I'm sure my husband lied to you to make himself look better. I often complained to him about my job and the issues I faced, so he probably used that information to mislead you. The truth is, he's just a regular employee at a small company with a salary that's about half of mine." "That's a scam." He claimed he worked for a foreign invested company and that he owned the house outright. But the house is actually in both our names and I made the down payment, so if he wants to stay in the house after the divorce, he'll need to pay me half of its appraised value. "Oh no. He's not handsome, doesn't have money, and there's nothing appealing about him." "Well, I suppose he wasn't attractive enough for an affair. He was a good dad though. Care how good he is with kids. He cheated on me." "I'm sorry to hear that, but you'd better make sure you pay your alimony. If you don't, I'll come after you." Soon after, I received a call from my ex-husband. He was upset because his affair partner had left him just before their wedding. It turned out she had dumped him. But he was the one who lied and tried to impress a beautiful nurse, so he brought this on himself. I told him that if he wanted to address his problems, he should start by earning as much as I do. Then I ended the call. Since then, I only see my ex-husband when my daughter wants to visit him. Each time he sees me, he complains about his situation. I've heard that his injury from playing basketball has caused significant issues at work. His boss is furious, and it seems he'll never get promoted. Honestly, he brought this on himself. Meanwhile, I'm back home, working diligently while my parents help me raise my daughter. Their support allows me to save for her education and take weekend trips with my family. Although I was concerned that the divorce might affect my daughter negatively, she continues to smile just as sweetly as ever. I'm committed to working hard to keep her happy. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one. When I returned home from our week-long honeymoon, strange noises greeted me as I walked through the door. Anxiety set in. I feared that the house might have been broken into while we were away. Did you hear that? Maybe there's someone inside. Should we call the police? I asked my husband, but he dismissed my concerns with a calm, "It's all right." He strode into the house, and I hurried after him, my heart racing. To my relief, it wasn't burglars but my mother-in-law Kelly and my sister-in-law Jo. They were inside, seemingly at ease. I was puzzled, wondering why they were there. Apparently, they had volunteered to look after the house while we were gone, and my husband had given them a key. I had assumed they would leave once we returned. "It's getting dark. If you don't go home soon, you'll be out of time," I suggested, hoping they'd take the hint. Instead of leaving, they settled in, commandeering the living room and even taking a shower without asking. I hoped they would depart the next morning, but when I came home from work, they were still there. Unable to tolerate the intrusion any longer, I asked my husband to ask them to leave. His response shocked me. "We all live together now, so if you don't like it, you can leave." He was suggesting that I move out instead. I packed a few essentials and left with just a carry-on. My name is Izzy. I'm a 29-year-old magazine editor. 3 years ago, I met my current husband, Alex, through a friend. Prior to him, I had little relationship experience, but I was drawn to his decisive and dependable nature. He expressed his love first, and after 3 years of dating, proposed. We married, and while searching for a new home and wedding venue, Alex's reliability made everything run smoothly. I enjoyed our life together in the new house. But my mother-in-law Kelly and sister-in-law Jo were a constant source of stress. My father-in-law had passed away a decade ago, leaving Alex's family as just Kelly and 27-year-old Jo. I had minimal contact with them before our marriage and hoped to maintain a polite distance. However, after the wedding, their presence became increasingly intrusive. Kelly began calling almost daily, demanding more money. "Can you increase my allowance? I can't live decently on what you give me. Just $200 more would be enough," she pleaded. I told her to ask Alex, as he was in charge of finances. She accused me of being extravagant and warned me that not taking care of my in-laws would bring bad karma. Despite my attempts to redirect her to Alex, she blamed me for her financial troubles. Kelly also insisted that I visit her more often, help with chores, and send her favorite foods monthly. While Kelly harangued me over the phone, Jo started showing up unannounced, adding to my stress. While I was cooking dinner, Kelly frequently dropped by unannounced, saying things like, "I was in the neighborhood, so I thought I'd pop in. Is dinner ready yet? I'm starving. Hurry up." She would make herself comfortable on the sofa, waiting for me to finish cooking, and then leave after eating. Despite my repeated requests for her to give me notice before visiting and to come less often, she always brushed off my concerns. "Don't worry about it, I'm just stopping by. Just feed me whatever," she'd say dismissively. I tried to address the issue with Alex, and he did speak to both Kelly and Jo about their behavior. Despite this, I didn't feel it was appropriate to be too harsh with them, given that Jo was Alex's sister. 6 months into our marriage, Alex and I finally went on our long-awaited honeymoon in Europe, which had been postponed due to our busy schedules. We enjoyed every moment, unwinding and escaping from daily stress. However, when we returned home after a smooth week-long trip, we were greeted by strange noises coming from inside the house. Panic set in as I wondered if we were dealing with a burglary. "Did you hear that? Maybe there's someone in the house. Shouldn't we call the police?" I asked Alex, but he didn't seem concerned at all. "It's all right," he said calmly, walking into the house as if nothing was wrong. I quickly followed Alex into the house and was relieved to find Kelly and Jo instead of burglars. However, I was puzzled about why they were there. "Oh, you're back. Did you bring me a souvenir? The bracelet I asked for? Did you get it?" Kelly asked, clearly expecting something. "Of course not, it was too expensive," she replied when I said I hadn't. While the three of them chatted away happily, I couldn't help but wonder about their presence. Why are you guys here?" I asked. Kelly looked at me with a hint of annoyance. "Are you saying our presence is a nuisance? An empty house is an easy target for burglars while you were on vacation. We went out of our way to protect it, so you should be grateful." Apparently, they had offered to watch the house while we were away, and Alex had given them the key. I had told Alex that he should have discussed this with me first. He replied that he hadn't had time because they had approached him at the last minute. What was done, so I tried to accept that the house was safe thanks to their efforts. As I looked around, however, I saw the extent of the mess they had left. Every room was cluttered with their belongings. Joe's clothes were crammed into the closet, with the overflow strewn across the floor. In the living room, clothes, bags, remote controls, comic books, and other items were scattered everywhere, not just on the table but also on the floor. After a long flight, I was exhausted and frustrated by the thought of cleaning up all this mess. That wasn't the only issue at hand. I had hoped that once we arrived home, Kelly and Joe would leave, but they didn't. "It's going to be dark soon. If you don't go home now, you'll be stuck here," I said, trying to be polite. "Why don't you let us take it easy today?" Kelly responded. Not only did they refuse to leave, but they also took over the living room and started taking showers without asking. They had completely made themselves at home. Expected them to leave the next morning, but there was no sign of them moving out. When I came home from work, they were still there. I told them it was time for them to go. "We're family. You don't have to worry about us. Just pretend we're not here," they insisted. Despite their insistence that I ignore their presence, I was the one who ended up cooking, cleaning, and doing the laundry. I felt overwhelmed and frustrated. If I didn't take action, they seemed ready to stay as long as they wanted. I decided I needed to ask Alex to intervene and ask them to leave. As I was tidying up my room, I noticed that one of my limited edition perfumes, worth over $300 and no longer available for sale, was missing. I had been using it sparingly. Panic set in and I asked Kelly if she had seen it, but she claimed she didn't even know I had perfume. When I questioned Joe, she pulled out the bottle from her bag and handed it to me. To my dismay, it was nearly empty. I had been careful with my limited edition perfume, and there was still more than 6% left. When I confronted Joe about the missing perfume, she simply said, "It smells nice, doesn't it?" My friend liked it too, so I lent it to her. She'd offered no apology, and my frustration boiled over. "Why did you use it without asking? What you're doing is theft. Didn't you learn that stealing from others is wrong?" I demanded. Joe brushed off my anger. "I only borrowed it for a moment. Why are you overreacting? If you're so concerned, just take back what's left. If you borrowed it, then give me back what you used," I insisted. "Fine, but since it's already used, I'll only give you half the money," she retorted. "I don't want the money, I want the perfume back," I said firmly. Joe rolled her eyes. "You're so unreasonable over a bottle of perfume. I know the brand and it shouldn't be that expensive." She checked the price on her phone and was taken aback. "Holy cow, why is it so expensive? Are you really going to spend $300 on perfume? If it's that important, maybe you should have mentioned it." Seeing her reaction, I felt even more disheartened. "It's valuable to me, and I only used it inside the house. I never imagined I'd have a relative come into my room and use my things without permission." As we argued, Alex walked in. "What's all this fuss about?" "Alex, she used my perfume and called me a thief," I said, leaving Joe in the living room while I explained everything to him in the bedroom. "I'm at my limit. I need you to ask them to leave." "Don't get so worked up over something minor," Alex replied dismissively. "Also, I haven't mentioned that they're going to be living with us here." My jaw dropped at his unexpected announcement. My mom's house was old and falling apart, so she was considering repairs or moving. "We have extra rooms and it's more cost-effective for her to stay here. We decided to live together. Why didn't you talk to me about this? Do you own the house alone? I'm paying the mortgage too. Don't blame me, my mom decided to sell her house on her own." I protested. Alex's response was blunt. "We're living together now, so if you don't like it, you can leave." His decision, made without my input, and his suggestion that I leave left me feeling distant and hurt. I realized my feelings for him were fading. "I understand," I said quietly. I started packing the essentials into my carry-on case. Alex didn't try to stop me but remarked that running away after a fight was immature before walking out of the bedroom. Kelly and Joe watched with smirks as I packed, and as soon as I left the house, they locked the door behind me. I had no intention of returning. I headed to a hotel and called my boss, with whom I regularly consulted, to request a few days off. During my time off, I searched for an apartment and informed my parents that I had separated from Alex, explaining the situation. They asked what my next steps were, and I told them I planned to get a divorce. In the meantime, Alex sent me a text. "If you're sorry, you can come back. Mommy and Joe both say they'd forgive you." When I called him to discuss the divorce, he initially resisted, saying, "You're divorcing me over this. You just need to put up with it a little longer." Eventually, he recognized my determination and agreed to the divorce. From that point, everything progressed smoothly, and the divorce was finalized within 6 months. I wanted to end things as quickly as possible, so we swiftly divided our assets and I handed over the house to him. We had been married for less than a year and now we were divorced. My friends and coworkers were concerned and curious about what had happened. Initially, I shrugged off their questions, unable to share the details. But as I processed everything, I became more open about the situation. When I told them the full story, their reactions were unanimous. "That's impossible." I appreciated the sympathy from my friends and coworkers. It made me feel a bit better, knowing they were supportive of my situation. After moving out and living alone, I threw myself into work with renewed intensity. Instead of spending time on household chores, I took on 3 times as many projects as usual and even helped out colleagues who were overwhelmed. My boss noticed my dedication and expressed concern, but as I immersed myself in work, the memories of my difficult times resurfaced and I began to blame myself. Despite being grateful for the distraction work provided, Alex called me about 5 months after the divorce. I had left most of my belongings behind when I moved out, so I answered the phone thinking it might be about that. Alex started by asking what I was doing and if I was living alone. His approach seemed unusual because he was typically impatient with vague conversations. I didn't want to waste time, so I asked directly why he was calling. He said he wanted to get back together. I had no interest in rekindling the relationship, so I said no and attempted to end the call. But Alex quickly interjected. "Wait, there's something I haven't told you yet." "I'm busy, so make it quick," I replied. He continued, "Can you lend me some money? I'm struggling to pay the mortgage. It used to be a joint responsibility, so I understand it's hard to manage alone." I knew the amount Alex needed wasn't that significant, but he explained that he had been expecting a raise a few months ago that never materialized. He had also been informed that his performance wouldn't warrant any future increases. Faced with this, he decided to look for a new job, hoping for better conditions. Unfortunately, he only found a lower-paying position and had yet to secure a new role. Regardless of his situation, I wasn't willing to lend him any money. Told him not to contact me again. "You're still single, right? No one will want a middle-aged divorcee like you. You'd be better off reconciling with me," he said. I simply replied, "No, thank you," and ended the call. I couldn't understand why I had fallen for and married him. I was deeply disappointed in my own judgment. After that, Alex, Kelly, and Joe all began to harass me. Through our conversations, I learned that they believed Alex was earning a substantial income due to us buying a new house and having a lavish wedding. Since their allowance hadn't increased and Alex had refused to do so, they thought I was the one preventing it. They had been pleased to live comfortably after I left, but when they discovered Alex's salary was lower than expected, they panicked. They seemed to think that men were paid more than women, but my salary was actually higher than his. I wanted to block all of them on my phone, but Alex knew where I worked and could easily find me. I was anxious that Alex might call me at work or even show up at my office, so I answered his calls a few times. He consistently complained about Kelly and Joe spending too much money and running out of savings. They had started working part-time but couldn't make ends meet because they spent their earnings so quickly. It seemed like every conversation revolved around money. I hoped that if I told him I was in a similar financial situation, he might stop calling. I decided to use this approach the next time he reached out. That day, as usual, Alex called and said, "I need money. I don't have enough to pay the mortgage this month." I replied, "Actually, I'm planning to resign from my job soon. I've spent most of my savings, so I need some money from you. If you think I'm lying, you can check with someone at my work." Alex simply said, "I see," and ended the call. After that, he stopped contacting me. When I shared this with a friend, she informed me that Alex's situation was even worse than I had realized. He had ended up with a lower-paying job, and most of his salary went towards the mortgage. Additionally, Joe had an affair with her part-time job manager, who was married. When his wife discovered the affair, she fired Joe and filed a civil lawsuit against her. Initially, Joe claimed that the manager had pursued her and she didn't know he was married. However, text exchanges revealed she was aware of his wife's pregnancy and still pursued him. The manager and his wife divorced, and Joe faced a substantial compensation claim. Joe's affair and subsequent lawsuit led to her losing both her job and her friends. Alex's family ended up covering the mortgage and the debt from the lawsuit, effectively living in a cycle of debt. Kelly, meanwhile, complained that her friends had grandchildren while her own children were still single and struggling. Alex often lamented to this friend about his daily arguments with Kelly, his current single status, and how women no longer showed interest in him. He had lost weight and looked disheveled, aging far beyond his years. His friend rolled her eyes at his complaints. Had shared the reasons for my divorce with many people, and now this friend was the only one Alex had left to confide in. She was the one who introduced us and felt a sense of responsibility for how things turned out. Although she found his constant drama oddly intriguing, she stayed in touch with him to keep him away from me. As for me, I recently launched a web magazine with a university friend. I left my previous job and invested most of my savings into the startup. Though it's a small venture and I handle many tasks on my own, I am thrilled by the new challenges. Where I once felt daunted by new beginnings, I now manage them with confidence, having grown from past obstacles. I've also started a new relationship with someone I met at work. He respects my feelings and supports me, helping me realize that Alex was not a decisive leader but simply selfish. For a while after my divorce, I doubted that I would ever marry or date again. Now I am able to think positively and cherish the new happiness in my life.
Call an ambulance. Hurry up. My husband, who always rubbed me the wrong way, collapsed on the floor, drenched in a greasy sweat. The paramedics arrived swiftly, assessing his condition before lifting him onto a stretcher. "Are you his wife?" one of them asked me. "Could you come with us to the hospital?" As my husband lay there on the stretcher, he looked at me with pleading eyes. I met his gaze without wavering. "No, I will not," I replied firmly, without a hint of hesitation. "What?" he murmured, his voice tinged with confusion, as if he couldn't comprehend what he was hearing. "This man is a stranger to me," I continued coldly. "So, I'm not coming." "What?" "Please handle everything else," I said, turning away from him. "Wait, Lydia, wait," he called out desperately. But I had something else in mind. I reached into my pocket and pulled out an object I had been carrying for days. The moment his eyes fell on it, his face turned ashen. "How dare you treat me like a slave all these years?" I said, my voice steady. "This is my revenge. I will never forgive you. My name is Lydia. I'm a 36-year-old housewife living in a rented apartment with my husband Caleb. We met years ago through a colleague at work when I was still a full-time employee. My colleague, who had many friends, often invited me to social events. Being an introvert, I preferred watching movies or cooking alone, so I usually declined. One day, my colleague convinced me to attend a barbecue. Reluctantly, I agreed. The event was crowded, and I felt out of place until my colleague introduced me to Caleb. He was tanned, clearly an outdoorsy type, quite the opposite of me. But when we started talking, I found him sociable and humorous. Surprisingly, we shared many common interests, just as my colleague had predicted. We exchanged contact information and made plans to meet again. After several outings, we began dating. Caleb proposed after a few years, and we got married. He was always kind, the ideal partner to draw me out of my indoor life. But over the past few years, something changed. Caleb began saying and doing things that left me feeling increasingly uncomfortable. I quit my job to become a housewife because Caleb wanted me to. However, he often made sarcastic remarks about it. One evening, I was late preparing dinner because I had been feeling unwell. When Caleb came home, he immediately noticed. "I'm home, Lydia. Hey, why isn't dinner ready yet?" "Hi, sorry. I wasn't feeling well today, so I rested earlier and couldn't get up in time. Can you take a bath first?" I asked, hoping for some understanding. "Ha! What's that about?" he replied, clearly annoyed. "You're a housewife. You should at least have the meal ready." His lack of concern for my health made me incredibly sad. Another time, I approached him about an upcoming reunion in my hometown. "Hey Caleb, there's a reunion coming up in my hometown. I'll finish my chores, so can I go?" "Suit yourself," he replied indifferently. "Well, being a stay-at-home wife is great, isn't it? I envy you, Lydia. You get to play around with the money your husband makes." Caleb usually treated me well, carrying my purse and bringing me flowers after work. But at times he could be so callous that I wondered if he wanted me to work. I even suggested taking a part-time job, but Caleb insisted that wasn't the case, so I remained a full-time housewife. One day, I received an unexpected call from one of Caleb's relatives. I answered, feeling a bit apprehensive. "Lydia," the voice on the other end said urgently, "Caleb's mother has collapsed." I froze, shocked by the news. The relative explained that she had visited my mother-in-law a few hours earlier and found her lying in the yard. She called an ambulance, which rushed her to the hospital. Panicking, I quickly got ready and dashed out of the house. When I arrived at the hospital, I was told her condition was still critical. As I was being briefed by the medical staff, Caleb arrived, breathless and frantic. We were escorted to my mother-in-law's room, where she lay in bed, her body connected to various tubes. It was heartbreaking to see. "Mom," Caleb called out softly, but there was no response. Caleb stayed by her side for the rest of the day. I decided to head home to prepare everything needed for the days ahead. I needed to prepare for my mother-in-law's hospital stay, so I gathered everything she might need. After a while, she recovered enough to sit up on her own, but she still struggled to do anything without assistance. "I'm glad she's able to sit up," I thought. "I wonder if she'll be able to walk again if she continues with her physical therapy." As her discharge date approached, I brought it up with Caleb. "Her discharge is next week," I mentioned casually. But Caleb's response caught me off guard. "Oh yeah? Are you ready? We'll be leaving this house next week, so you better start packing our things." I blinked, confused by what he meant. Caleb noticed my reaction and seemed irritated. "We don't need this house anymore since we're moving in with my mom at her place," he said, his tone dismissive. "Honestly, you're still as dense as ever." "Wait," I said, trying to process his words. "Does that mean we're going to live with your mother after she gets out of the hospital? I never heard anything about that. Did you decide this without talking to me? And have you already canceled the lease on this house?" Caleb's expression darkened further. "Of course, I've already canceled the lease. It's the right thing to do for us as a family to live together and help her. Don't tell me you don't want to live with her, do you? I'm the one who supports this family, so I won't tolerate any complaints." With that, he stomped back to his room, leaving me stunned. I never imagined Caleb would take such a hard-line approach, especially without consulting me. I couldn't believe he had already canceled the lease on our apartment. I had no choice but to move out. I knew he was concerned about his mother, but this was overwhelming. I sighed deeply. A few days later, I found myself living with my mother-in-law. I had never been a caregiver before, so everything was new to me. Most of my day was spent feeding, bathing, and helping my mother-in-law with her toileting needs. She didn't want me to take care of her and barely communicated with me. Whenever I tried to talk to her, she would retreat to her bed, claiming she was in pain. When my mother-in-law was healthy, we didn't have a bad relationship. In fact, we would sometimes exchange delicious snacks we found at the department store. But now, it seemed her frailty had overwhelmed her ability to care about anything else. On the other hand, my husband Caleb, who had insisted on us moving in together, was rarely home. After work, he would go out for drinks and return in the early morning. Even on his days off, he always found an excuse to go out. When he did come home, he would lock himself in his room and play video games. One day, I decided to confront him while he was immersed in his games. I know you can't avoid working overtime or socializing with your colleagues, but can't you at least help me take care of your mother when you're at home? Or maybe help out with the housework? I asked. Without even glancing away from the screen, Caleb replied, "What are you being so naive about? Housework and caregiving are your jobs. I'm tired from working, you know." Then, as if to emphasize his point, he added, "Oh, and I'm almost out of coffee. Go make me some and clean this room, okay? And don't forget to take these to the dry cleaner. I need them by Wednesday." He spoke to me in a dismissive, one-sided manner, tossing his work clothes at me without a second thought. This time, I felt something inside me shift. I couldn't hold back any longer. "That's enough, Caleb. I've been doing all the housework and taking care of your mother every single day for the past month without a break. Why can't you help me even a little?" Caleb slammed his game controller down on the desk, standing up with an angry glare. "How dare you talk to me like that? Who do you think you owe your livelihood to? If you've got a problem with me, then get out. Pack your things and leave." His voice dripped with sarcasm as he added, Well, what about my poor mom? She's going to be left alone with no one to take care of her." His words stung, and I found myself unable to respond. It was true. I had only a small amount of money saved up, and I couldn't bring myself to abandon my mother-in-law, who was completely dependent on me. So allowing my frustration, I picked up his suit and quietly left the room. 6 months passed in this difficult routine. Then one morning, everything changed. When I went to check on my mother-in-law, as I always did, I found that she was no longer breathing. I called an ambulance and rushed her to the hospital, but it was too late. Caleb was in tears, but for some reason, I couldn't cry. I felt a strange, cold detachment as I watched him grieve. "You didn't do anything to help her," I thought to myself. And then, when I realized I no longer had to take care of her, a wave of relief washed over me. The guilt for feeling this way weighed on me, but I couldn't deny it. Time flew by, and before I knew it, 2 weeks had passed since my mother-in-law's funeral. It was time to organize her belongings. After Caleb left for work, I started cleaning out her room. I carefully placed her favorite clothes and accessories into cardboard boxes. There weren't many, so the task was done quickly. Next, I opened the cabinet by her bedside. It was nearly empty, but on the bottom shelf, there was a large tin. I recognized it. It was an old can of assorted sweets. I had given her the can when she was still in good health. Seeing it there now, I wondered why she had kept it. Curious, I opened the lid and found a letter inside. The envelope had my name on it, written shackily, "Dear Lydia." My heart raced as I quickly opened it and began to read. In trembling letters, there was a message for me. "Lydia, I am sorry for making you take care of me. I was ashamed of myself for burdening you every day. I was also ashamed of my son Caleb. I know how badly he has treated you. Lydia, you should leave him and live your life the way you want." My mother-in-law knew everything. How selfish her son was and how much I was suffering because of it. At the end of the letter, she wrote, "I am glad that I was able to spend the last days of my life with you, Lydia. Thank you." In that moment, I cried for the first time since she passed away. All the emotions I had been holding back flooded out of me. I cried and cried until there were no tears left. And then I made up my mind. I would divorce my husband. 10 days had passed since I found the letter from my mother-in-law, but Caleb continued treating me like a servant. "Lydia, I'm missing one of my socks. Where is it? And take my car to the car wash today. You've got nothing else to do, right?" He was going out golfing with his colleagues, completely oblivious that today was our wedding anniversary. Not that I cared anymore. "What are you going to do while I'm gone? You can't just sit around. You need to prepare dinner, clean my room, and scrub the bathroom. You've got plenty to keep you busy." His arrogance left me speechless. "Hey, are you listening? Bring me my sock and a jacket. Hurry up, or I'll be late." Just as he finished barking orders, Caleb suddenly clutched his stomach and collapsed to the floor, writhing in pain and sweating profusely. He gasped for me to call an ambulance, his voice strained as if squeezing out the words. I stood frozen, overwhelmed by the sadness of the situation, as my husband yelled at me, "Hurry up, you're really useless. Can't even call an ambulance." Strangely, his words made me feel calm. I picked up the phone and dialed 911. Within minutes, the ambulance arrived, and the paramedics quickly assessed Caleb's condition, placing him on a stretcher. As they prepared to leave, one of them asked, "You're his wife, right? Will you come with us to the hospital?" Caleb looked at me with pleading eyes, but I met his gaze with unwavering resolve and replied, "No, I will not." His voice faltered. "What?" It was as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. "This man is a stranger to me now," I said firmly. "I'm not coming. Please take care of the rest." With that, I pulled out something I had been carrying in my pocket for days, divorce papers that Caleb had once forced me to sign during a previous fight, always threatening to serve them if I ever disobeyed him. As he tried to snatch the papers from me, the pain in his body made it impossible for him to move. He slumped back onto the stretcher, defeated. "Excuse me, but please leave now," I told the paramedics, who finally took Caleb away. I watched as the ambulance drove off, likely thinking of him as a poor husband whose wife had just handed him divorce papers. It took some time, but the divorce papers were accepted, and the divorce was officially finalized while Caleb was still in the hospital for a week. As the ambulance left, I knew I was finally free. I was busy packing my belongings and sending them to my parents' house when I unexpectedly ran into Caleb at the grocery store. "Lydia, please don't do this to me," he pleaded. "You love me, don't you? Please don't leave me. I admit I've made mistakes. You always listened to me, no matter what I said, and I just got carried away." The once overbearing attitude he had a few months ago was gone, replaced by a completely pathetic look. "What are you talking about?" I replied coldly. "The divorce is already finalized. It's too late for you to act so fragile. Go ahead, live your life as you please." He looked shocked, as if he hadn't really believed I would go through with the divorce. His hands were shaking, and his face turned pale. "Well, that's that then. Bye." 6 months had passed since our divorce, and Caleb had once shown up at my parents' house. He rang the intercom and called out my name so loudly that I had no choice but to see him. Sure enough, he wanted me to get back together with him. When I stayed silent, he began to spill out details about his current lifestyle. He couldn't cook because he had forced me to do all the housework, so now he lived on TV dinners and takeout. He had gained 10 pounds since the divorce, his face and stomach visibly fuller. He didn't know how to do laundry, so his shirts were wrinkled and smelled strange, making him look even more disheveled. "I finally realized how much you did, Lydia," he said, starting to sob. "If I don't get my act together, the people at work won't like me." But I saw right through those crocodile tears. He just wanted to treat me like a servant again. There was no way I was going back to that. No, never. "If you make any more noise, I'll call the police," I told him, treating him like a stranger. Caleb, clearly afraid of the police, left the house in tears. I was sure he wouldn't bother me again, and I hoped I was right. While my ex-husband seemed to be leading a very inconvenient life, I was living quite comfortably. I had stayed at my parents' house for a while, but now I rented a small apartment and lived alone. My standard of living was lower than when I lived with Caleb, but I loved this new life where I had my own time and space. I had worried about finding another job at my age, but as luck would have it, a friend of mine had a contact who was retiring, and I managed to step into her role. I felt so happy to spend my time and money on myself without anyone telling me what to do. From now on, I was going to take care of myself at my own pace. It was the beginning of a new chapter in my life.
Indeed, is it true that you've acquired a house? If so, I'd be interested in living with you. Unexpectedly, my mother-in-law started uttering such an absurd proposition over the phone. She must have caught wind of our recent home purchase from my husband. I could discern my sister-in-law's amused chuckles in the background. Does she believe her laughter can go unnoticed? Honestly, I have no desire to reside with my mother-in-law and the others. I thought my husband shared the same sentiment. However, the fact that they've been informed about our new house. Could it be that they're assuming we'll be living together? The idea that my beloved husband might be in cahoots with them fills me with a bit of apprehension. Yet, I have no intention of yielding to their wishes. Are they trying to manipulate me? If that's their game, I'll reverse the roles. Reflecting on all my past tribulations, I'd pledged revenge against them. I am Kate Thompson, 30 years old, working as an ordinary employee at a major financial corporation. I married my husband Joe 3 years ago, and though we don't have children yet, There's a valid reason for that. A decision we both took seriously. Joe and I are fully committed to our careers, toiling daily with the aim of advancing. Once our professional lives stabilize, we plan to build our own home and create a stable environment for raising children. We've agreed to revisit the topic of having kids once our careers settle down. This was a decision we made earnestly, sharing our genuine feelings and thoughts. We do aspire to have children eventually, and now as we prepare for that, I find myself recalling all my past struggles. Then one day, I successfully executed a well-planned project at work, and my promotion was officially confirmed. While my salary was already sufficient, the promotion brought even more comfort to our lives. On the other hand, Joe, although not promoted, received a substantial salary increase due to his years of service. With both our incomes on the rise, I felt it was time to turn our long-held dream into reality, so I broached the topic with Joe. Joe, I want to talk to you. Over the past year, both of us have had stable incomes. I think it might be time to consider getting our own home. What do you think? Oh, is it time already? From his excited voice, I could tell Joe was thrilled. Actually, I've been thinking about it too, but since I haven't been promoted yet, I felt a bit hesitant to bring it up. Don't worry about that. It's not like only one of us needs to earn money. I was thinking it might be okay to build our home in my name. Really? Well, you do earn more now. If you're okay with it, let's build our home in your name. All right, let's proceed with that. Let's go see some model houses on our next day off. Sounds great, let's go. We shouldn't miss this opportunity. I really feel grateful for choosing Joe at times like this, as we share the same values. The following week, we made an appointment to view model homes as planned. We looked at various types of houses, expanding our vision for our own home. On weekends, we began creating simple floor plans together, researching online. During a recent visit to a construction company, they suggested that instead of leaving everything to them, it's better if we create our own image for a more satisfying home. So Joe and I started building that image. However, neither of us has much knowledge of architecture or design, and even with research, it takes time to put it into practice. While taking breaks, we continued working, and then the doorbell rang. I thought it was a delivery, but when I opened the door, my mother-in-law was standing there unexpectedly. "Huh, Mother? What brings you here so suddenly like this?" My mother-in-law sometimes visits our place without notice. She glared at me and, without a word, took off her shoes and went into the house on her own. I near Joe, surprised by his mother's call, showed a startled reaction. "What's up? Did you have some business around here?" To Joe's question, his mother looked a bit perplexed. "Yes, I told Kate about it over the phone a little while ago, but it seems Joe didn't know." "I see. Maybe Kate forgot to tell me. Seems like it, Joe, even though he's still young, has a terrible memory." "That's not true, Mom. It's not forgetfulness. Kate is incredibly busy with work, and at the same time, she takes care of the household. Her mind is always full of things to do. You're such a kind boy, Joe. If your late father were here, he definitely wouldn't have forgiven that. I really respect Kate from the bottom of my heart. So, Mom, why did you come here today?" To Joe's question, his mother smiled contentedly. Then she slowly took out a travel brochure from her bag, spread a page with a post-it note on the table, and showed it. "Listen, Joe, I've always wanted to go to Niagara Falls. Won't you take me, please?" My mother-in-law began to say such things excitedly out of the blue. Caught off guard by the sudden request, both Joe and I were left staring at her, mouths agape. My mother-in-law, relentless, kept pressing Joe, who was clearly flustered. "Come on, Joe, you agree, right? Think of it as a way to show filial piety." "Wait a minute, Mom. I'm in trouble if you suddenly say you want to go on a trip. Though you can come too, actually. I was thinking of going with Claire, but if Joe wants to go, I'm delighted to turn it into a family trip. Claire is Joe's sister." "What are you talking about? Kate is here, and I can't get time off from work. But it's strange for me to pay for a trip for you and my sister, right?" "Not strange at all. Spending money for the family is a wonderful thing, don't you think so, Kate? Suddenly turning to me, my mother-in-law sought my agreement. Though shaken, I firmly expressed my opinion to her. Using one's own money for family isn't bad, but I think imposing it on others is different. What do you mean by that? Are you saying I'm trying to extort travel expenses from Joe? I didn't mean to say it in such a harsh way, but listening to you, it sounded like you just wanted us to pay for the trip, Katie. That's terrible. I had no such intention, but you're making me out to be the villain in front of Joe. I'm so shocked. That's not. I didn't mean to call you a villain. I just answered honestly to what was asked. Okay, no need for excuses, Kate. Why are you so heartless? You must not like me, do you? My mother-in-law, visibly upset, glared at me with icy cold eyes. It always turns out like this when she comes over. She always finds some reason to demand money and then squanders it with Claire, Joe's sister. Spending money for the family sounds nice, but what my mother-in-law does is practically extortion. The situation is entirely different when Joe gives the money out of kindness, no matter of their family. I never really liked Joe's mother and sister. According to Joe, his mother and sister became selfish after his father passed away. Joe's father died when he was in high school, and since then, they have lived as a trio. With his strict father alive, he watched over the finances. But with his departure, there was no one to stop them, and they even freely spent the life insurance money. Also, since Claire works part-time and not as a full-time employee, her salary is low, and their life is always on the edge. So this is why she regularly visits our house, making excuses like life is tough, or I want to relax and travel somewhere, to extort money from Joe. Before marrying Joe, it seemed he was at the mercy of his mother and her demands. After his father's death, a sense of dependence for being cared for by his mother had bound Joe. However, since marrying me, Joe seems to be gradually realizing their true nature. Even when repeatedly asked for money, recently he's been trying hard to refuse. For Joe, that's quite a growth. Moreover, he has recently become able to speak back firmly to his mother. To my mother-in-law's spiteful words like, "You don't like me, do you?" Or "Why should I?" For such an uncharming daughter-in-law, Joe responded clearly, "Just because you're my mother doesn't mean you can speak badly of Kate." Didn't Kate just answer what you asked her? Mom, you're taking Kate's side. What are you talking about? I think you're in the wrong here, Mom. That's so unfair. Surely Kate must have poisoned your mind against me, poor thing. You were such a kind child before we got married. I'm telling you, that's not it. I'm saying this because I think so. Joe's firm response surprised my mother-in-law, who was not used to being talked back to like that. With a frustrated look, by biting her lower lip, she said, "Fine," and left. Kate, I'm sorry. I'd always make you feel uncomfortable. No, it's okay. You stood up for us this time. Once we build our own home, we'll be further away. Let's not interact with Mom and them. Then yeah, that would be a relief. If you're okay with it, Joe, I'm grateful. The area we're considering for our new home is quite far from our current apartment, improving the convenience for both of our workplaces. Our current apartment is about 5 train stations away from Joe's parental home, but the new house will be 3 times farther and require transfers. The route from the station is also complex, so if we don't give them the address, they won't be able to find our new home. It's a good chance to cleanly break off our relationship with my mother-in-law. Later, we submitted our imagined floor plan to the construction company, and the construction started 2 months later. After about half a year, our $500,000 dream home was completed. We managed to squeeze some time from our busy work schedules to pack a few days before the move. I received a call from my mother-in-law on my smartphone. Busy packing. I turned on the speaker and answered the phone. "Hello," I said, and my mother-in-law started speaking in an unusually high-pitched voice. "Kate, when are you moving? You bought a house, right? I want to live with you." Suddenly, on the phone, my mother-in-law began to say such an outrageous thing. She must have heard about our new home purchase from Joe. I could hear Claire, my sister-in-law, chuckling in the background. That's great. We can make Kate work for us every day, Mom. You came up with a good idea, said Claire. Do they think their words aren't reaching me? It's clear they plan to piggyback on our move. I imagine them planning to use us for an easy life, honestly. I have no intention of living with them. I thought Joe felt the same. But telling them about the new house. Could it be that they're assuming we'll live together? The thought that my beloved Joe might be in league with them fills me with a bit of fear. But I have no intention of letting them have their way. They're probably trying to use me, right? If that's the case, I'll turn it around and use them. I told them the date of our move. Then my mother-in-law and Claire said, we'll come to the apartment in the afternoon on that day. Take us with you in the car and arrange the movers for us too. They hung up after making their demands. But of course, I have no intention of complying. For now, I'll check the facts with Joe. As I was about to go and tell Joe this, he was already standing behind me. Joe, you were there. I came to say we should take a break. But was that Mom on the phone just now? Ah, yes. I was going to talk to you about it too. Why did you tell your mother about our new home? It's not like that. Actually, when Mom came over last time, she seems to have seen the floor plan of our new house. She kept pestering me about it every day, so Kate, I'm really sorry. I see. So you don't intend to live with your mother, right? Of course not. After hearing that phone call, I'm even thinking it's better to cut ties with her. Joe's expression was filled with more anger than ever. It was the first time I had seen him this angry. From what Joe told me, my mother-in-law had seen the layout of our new home and was convinced it was a spacious house. She had pretended to be interested and called Joe repeatedly, asking him about the number of rooms and details of the facilities. But it seems that Joe is on my side, which relieved me. Then there's no problem at all. This made me determined to get my revenge on my mother-in-law. I've had enough of her saying whatever she wants, but it's goodbye to that now. I'll make sure to settle this properly. And so the day of the move arrived. Joe and I had the movers transport our things in the morning and headed to our new home in our car. By the time we finished moving everything, it was already past 1 p.m. Checking our phones while taking a break. We saw dozens of missed calls from my mother-in-law. She called me too, Joe said, sounding weary. Then my mother-in-law called again. I answered the phone with the speaker still on. Hello? Hello, Kate. Where are you? I told you I'd be at the apartment in the afternoon, didn't I? Yes, you did say that. So what can I do for you? What do you mean you didn't arrange for the movers? I've been waiting at home, and not a single truck has shown up. So I had to go to your apartment myself. Is that so? Well, that's too bad. You know, I didn't arrange for any movers. What? That's not the agreement. Where is your new house? Huh, you really think I'll tell you? After saying that clearly, my mother-in-law uttered a dumbfounded huh. She probably thought that as long as Joe was there, she could always have her way. But Joe is different now. He's my precious ally, trying to cut off the bad ties with his family. Determined to release all my pent-up feelings, I spoke firmly. Just to let you know, neither Joe nor I have any intention of living with the two of you from now on. Please don't involve yourselves in our lives. What are you saying? Your opinion doesn't matter. It's up to Joe to decide. At least tell me where the new house is right now. Huh. How are you going to get here without even knowing the address? This house is in my name. I have the right to decide who lives here. If you two just barge in, it's trespassing, and I'll sue you right away. What? Trespassing? How rude to say that about your husband's family. At that point, Joe spoke up in a deathly cold voice. Family? My father, who was a family member, is already gone, isn't he? What are you saying, Joe? After hearing that last phone call, I'm utterly fed up with you two. Just having a blood relation with you is embarrassing. From now on, my family is only Dave and Kate. I no longer consider you two as my family. Wait, Joe, don't say such things. Don't bother us again, Gatted. With that, Joe hung up without waiting for her reply. He swiftly set his phone to block her calls. Hey, Joe, are you really okay with this? Yeah, I finally realized that Mom was just using me to her advantage. I feel completely relieved now. Joe looked truly refreshed, sincerely believing what he said. That's how we, as a couple, managed to cut off the bad ties with my mother-in-law and sister. Afterwards, they had to change their lifestyle drastically, as Joe stopped supporting them completely. Without any contact with Joe, they lost their fallback option. Later on, my sister-in-law's part-time income wasn't enough, and my mother-in-law had to start working part-time as well. Being a housewife for so long, she wasn't used to the working environment and was clumsy, often being disliked at her workplace. Meanwhile, we live a peaceful life in our new home with no sudden visits from my mother-in-law anymore. We are truly stress-free. I'm endlessly grateful to Joe for believing in me and cutting ties with his toxic blood relatives. We might face various challenges in the future, but even then, I trust Joe, and we will support each other and walk through life together.